Support the Amigos podcast and keep the Amiga goodness flowing for just $1 a month. Visit our page at patreon.com/AmigosPodcast.
Amiga, the first personal computer that gives you a creative edge.
Amigos, the podcast about everything Amiga. Amigos is a proud member of the Throwback Network, your home for quality retro podcasts. And now, here are your hosts, Aaron Dowdy and John Bodovkar Schaller.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today we are going to talk about Lotus Esprit Turbo Challenge 2. But before we do, we got some feedback to go over. This past week, I've got to say, we've had a massive influx of feedback, and I don't know if it's because we reviewed a game that people actually cared about, or if we've just kind of hit critical mass all of a sudden. But thank you for writing in.
Yeah, it's good news. Thank you.
So Slack Dastard on Reddit, he wrote in, said that Deluxe Galaga is one of his favorite games on the Amiga, and here's a pro tip for you. If you have the NTSC version, if you have a monitor that can handle PAL mode, you get a bigger screen space to play by putting it into PAL mode. Were you aware of that?
That doesn't surprise. I've never tried it, but that makes sense given how PAL and NTSC work.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, that's just a little tip for Deluxe Galaga. Mark Johnston wrote in. He said, hey, guy, just listened to a couple episodes and love the show. He didn't realize that we were in West Virginia, and he has a podcast called Lock is Lit. And his co-host on that podcast actually bought one of Aaron's pinball machines.
Yeah, I've met both those fellas, and I knew when they picked up the machine. I knew about their podcast shortly thereafter. I like pinball stuff. It's a good listen, and I miss my machine. Disco Fever. It was cheesy goodness from the 80s, and I'm sad that it's gone, but I need space.
Yeah, I understand. We also have a little bit of Amiga news. Defender of the Crown, one of the all-time classics for Amiga from CinemaWare.
Love it.
They are releasing, and by they, I'm not really sure who they are, but someone
knows.
Someone is releasing an extended collector's cut of and this is coming from cinemaware.com, so whoever owns that license now. Okay. And this seems cool. This is a big box, a classic huge PC box, physical item. It contains all of the different versions of the Amiga, the CD32, the CD-TV, C64, etc., which is what it says. So I guess, there's even more out there. I guess the NES had a port. It runs on the PC or Mac, and also on the CD32 and the Amiga. So I guess it just comes with discs, CDs and discs and whatever.
You're kidding me. So they're gonna ship individual discs for the different platforms?
Well, my guess, I would guess that it's going to come with a DVD that will run the PC on a PC or a Mac that has all of these ports on it. But it also says that it runs on a CD32, so that would take an actual.
Maybe it's just a CD.
Yeah, maybe it's a CD. Do you know? Can you play like burned CD games on the CD32?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's probably what that is.
Sometimes when you're like a poor American, this is the only way you can get some of these games is to find them and download them and burn them. So yeah. Right.
It also comes with extra digital content, so I'm guessing some making of stuff maybe. Now this is cool. It comes with disc files to create your own real Amiga or C64 discs.
I see. So that's how they're doing. Wow, that's incredibly awesome.
Isn't that cool?
That's so good.
And in addition to that, it also comes with printable disc labels.
So you can have an authentic quote unquote disc.
Right.
That's great.
It's got a real manual. It's got postcards, a poster, a sticker. It's limited to 500 units. The price, delivery, it's going to come out December 2015, and it has estimated in parentheses, which may or may not be the actual release date, but it rolls in at $44.95.
That's an awful good deal.
To me, that seems like if you're a big Defender of the Crown fan and you want everything, plus, I don't know how much of this stuff goes back to the Cinemaware, the original Cinemaware guys, but hopefully some of it does. $50, under $50 is, I mean, that's less than a current gen, console game, and you don't even get a manual with those anymore.
I will say this. Everyone go out and buy this, because what I need is a Wings version of this and possibly a TV Sports Basketball version.
Absolutely.
and many others. It Came from the Desert, Rocket Ranger. Just release them all, because a lot of those had multiple ports. And, boy, back in the day when you opened up the box, you got maps and you got little cards and stickers or scratch and sniff stuff. You got all kinds of crazy stuff, and I miss that. That's the thing, digital content, you get it. It's there's nothing there. It's nothing tangible.
You don't get any of that ephemera, the real cloth map.
I mean, I collect comic books, and I know digital comics are sort of the wave of things now, but I just can't get into something I can't tangibly open and pull out of the bag and look through. It's the same thing with video games. It's hard to get into them as much as you used to be, because you got so many cool things with them. And just looking at the art on the box sitting on your shelf is always nice too.
Oh yeah.
So I fully endorse that.
Yeah, definitely. So that's our one bit of new Amiga news this week. Aaron, you've got some information about Directory Opus.
Yeah, I mentioned this briefly last week that when we were talking about the Deluxe Galaga in that show, and I got a message from Shane R. Monroe, who also mentioned that the Directory Opus was still, in fact, being made for the PC. So I thought, just for fun and just as a quick segment, because I don't want to bore anyone with a bunch of utility talk, I thought I'd look back and kind of get a brief history of Directory Opus. Again, like I mentioned last week, it's a file management system. It's well, for the Amiga, it was a multi-paned system. It was created by a guy named Jonathan Potter, who we found out, this is how we got into this last week, is from Australia. And I like to just go into a few things about it. He, from what I've been able to ascertain, he had programmed on a C64. He saw a new computer called the Amiga 1000, picked it up, and eventually wrote Directory Opus, or Dopus for short, as it's commonly known. He originally released it in 1990, so you're looking at 25 years. In fact, it was just over 25 years. It was I think the original release is like sometime in September or something like that. So kind of paying tribute to the anniversary. The original program he wrote up was a program called JPDIR-UTIL, or JPDIR-UTIL. He wrote this to be able to access command line stuff from a graphic interface, which that's sort of what the Amiga graphics interface was for, and sort of what Windows is for. One major feature that utility lacked, which came out in Directory Opus, he went from instead of having one big window, he went with double windows, or a side-by-side pane. That's
tiled.
Yeah. This was this was Directory Opus. This was the beginning of it. The name, according to the author, Opus comes from magnum opus, or great work, right? And he had a grandiose view of how the program was going to do. That's a good name too. Not the Penguin, if any Bloom County fans out there, because stupidly, back when I was a little kid, that's probably what I thought it was. The first couple Directory Opuses released. This was never shareware, despite what people thought. According to an interview I read, this was a heavily pirated program. Sorry about that. He ran this for a long time, and eventually Directory Opus 3 was published by an outfit called Invatronics. From then on, it was published by Left Side Software. In '95, Directory Opus 5 was released. He started a series called the Magellan series as well. He ran with the Amiga for quite a while until Magellan 2, which was the last version for the Amiga, was released, and they released the source code for Directory Opus 4.2 in 2000, and so they released it to the community. Onward, he saw a lot of Amiga people were moving over to the PC, and so he followed suit. And he released a version for the PC, which was Directory Opus 6. It was pretty popular. It got a lot. It was a Windows Explorer replacement, which I mentioned to you last week. If you are familiar with the old Windows Explorer, I guess it's still there.
Oh yeah, I use it all the time.
It's quite bad, and
it's really not that bad.
It's compared to this. This is
all
better.
Right. Let's throw down. What can that do that Windows Explorer?
Well, to be honest, I have not used Internet Explorer for the newer versions for years.
Okay, so
remember, this was 2000.
Well, yeah.
Well, I'm just saying. I'm not saying this is better than that now, but in 2000, it didn't take much. It had this pretty much the same stuff that the Amiga version had. It was the dual pane. Eventually, he went to another version of Directory Opus that did away with the dual pane setup and sort of had multiple draggable windows with a column on the right hand side of the screen that had all the commands in it. Mm-hmm. He said he was surprised that the fans were so attached to the original dual pane that they didn't like this that much. So.
I can't believe computer fans would like something older.
Well, hey, I still like the start menu. Right? Anyway, long story short, Directory Opus is still available. It's up to Directory Opus 11. We'll put a link on the show notes, and I guess he's still pulling in some bucks on it. So good for him. And I think I read that he actually had released all the Amiga stuff into the wild at this point. So that was also a pretty nice gesture. So if you ever used Directory Opus and didn't know it existed on the PC, and you're looking for something to give a shot for your file maintenance, I've been told it's got an excellent multiple file renamer built into it, among other things. Give it a shot and support a guy that was been around for 25 years.
That's really cool. A lot of people might think that utilities are boring, but every once in a while it's cool to hear about, because Directory Opus, I bet you that there was somebody at Microsoft that used Directory Opus or at least knew about it enough to incorporate some of those features into the newer versions of Windows Explorer.
It wouldn't surprise me. And again, I've not used it on the PC, but I can tell you on the Amiga, it made painful everyday items so much simpler just by being able to use a button, have that dual pane set up. It was tremendous. So, again, the PC, the Windows, the GUI had advanced to a point now where that stuff's not as big a deal. But I know the people that still use it swear by it. Mm-hmm. And
I still have to use, a lot of bulk rename utilities and stuff when I do the web development work that I do. And it's a pain. And so, I'm going to check out Directory Opus and see, if it does something better.
And I still drop the DOS box, the DOS box sometimes to do things because I'm old and set in my ways. Much like the people that didn't like the loss of the dual panel, I guess.
Hi, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed listening to the Amigos podcast these past 4 months. Aaron and I really enjoy recording it each week. We're going to be holding a small donation drive to help support the show. If you'd like to contribute, head on over to amigospodcast.com and just click on the donate button in the upper right-hand corner. Thanks. All right, well, let's move on to game. It's game time.
All right.
So Lotus Esprit. Now, I'm not really sure. Is the title of the game Lotus Esprit Turbo Challenge 2 or just Lotus Turbo Challenge 2? I think it's just Lotus Turbo Challenge 2. What do you think?
I know the original was Lotus Esprit Turbo Challenge.
Right.
And the third one is called Lotus 3, the Ultimate Challenge.
Right.
So
I think, the Esprit, I think it's French, so I think you don't say the T.
Esprit, well, that shows you what I know. I also know nothing about cars, so it's a win-win.
And I think that the Esprit is an actual model of Lotus.
That's what, yeah, it is.
And then Lotus Turbo Challenge 2 also featured the Lotus Elan SE, and that's why Esprit was dropped from the title, because it had more than one car.
I know in my circles we called it Lotus 2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's what I think that's what everybody calls it. But it's kind of funny though. Even though they included 2 cars, you don't get to pick.
Yeah. They assign you a car depending on the map.
The player runs with the Elan on odd levels and the Esprit on even levels. So interesting choice. So what kind of background info do you have on this one?
Well, the game was released in '91, and it was released by an outfit called Gremlin Graphics. It was developed by an outfit called Magnetic Fields, which is kind of an interesting name, and I believe that's a band.
Yeah, the Magnetic Fields.
You actually heard of this band?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What have they done?
Probably. I mean, they're not a top 40 band. They're kind of an indie outfit, but I'd say that they were on the same. If you watched 120 Minutes back in the day, you might see kind of like Psychedelic Furs or some of those kinds of bands.
I say so. I know exactly. It's a college band.
Yeah,
which is funny
bands,
because now I'm so old. Magnetic Fields. Again, these are the developers. They were founded in '88, pretty much by the guys that did the game. The key people, the programming director for the outfit was called Sean Southern, which we'll get into him later. It was actually originally named, I love the original name, Mr. Chip Software.
I can't imagine why they changed that name.
Mr. Chip. They changed the name, needless to say. They developed a bunch of, not a ton of games, but a bunch of games that I've heard of. Just the highlights of what I saw on here. Trailblazer, I'd heard of. Of course, the Lotus series, the Supercars series, that I had heard of as well. They actually also, when they were just Mr. Chips, they did a game called Pac-Mania, which I'd heard of.
Oh, really? Pac-Mania, like the arcade game? Pac-Mania?
Well, this is not the arcade game. They did like 3 or 4 games for them. But the main ones they did were the Lotus series, the Supercar series. I think eventually they went away. Yes, they did in '99, and in 2000, a new company, sort of by the same guys, called Eugency, I believe. Is it EUGNICY?
Eugency? That's a strange.
They developed them. They opened them up to develop games, but apparently they never released anything. Bummer. They're long gone. It says here that they released some of what they were working on YouTube at some point in the late 2000s, 2009ish. The people that got to distribute the game, Gremlin Interactive. If you can't play this game without knowing that, because their name is stamped hither and thither. They were founded in '84, and they ended up getting absorbed on down the line. A UK company. Both these are UK companies. They were originally called Gremlin Graphics, and they published some stuff for pretty much all the old systems, including some Commodore 16 stuff, I found out. So there's that again, coming back into play. I looked over the list of what they'd put out, and I remember seeing them back in the day, occasionally. The games that they did that I remembered particularly were the Hero Quest games, which were based on the board game, if you ever played it.
Okay, yeah.
And of course the Lotus stuff. They also did a game, the Mickey Mouse, Plan 9 from Outer Space, which is a game I heard about but never got to play.
Really? Is it based on the film?
Yeah. Supercars, of course, and then the one that stood out. They did Zool and Zool 2. Of course, we remember that because again they were all over that. But the one game that I saw in here that I played the hell out of it, and I don't even know why, was a game called Techno Cop. If you can remember that, I know you've probably never played this boat. It's this gory. I don't even know how to describe this game, but it's fun. It's a fun game.
Is it kind of a RoboCop takeoff?
Yes. But yeah, it is. It's sort of like if RoboCop and Narc had a kid, sort of a hybrid game of that nature. Eventually, Gremlin acquired DMA Design.
Really?
Did not know that in '96, And then in '99, they were bought. The collective was bought by Infogrames.
Oh, Infogrames
And
later acquired Atari.
And they renamed. Well, here's the hilarious part, and this is just some stuff I saw on Wiki. They renamed Gremlin Infogrames Sheffield House, and they bought it for about 24 million pounds.
Huh.
A lot of money.
I wonder if they had offices in Sheffield. That's my old stomping grounds.
Well, there you
England.
go. Well, this may shed some light on that. The studio closed in 2003.
Well, so did everything else in
they
Sheffield.
paid 24 million pounds for effectively a 4-year run, and the building they occupied has been demolished. Demolished, and it was supposed to be renamed Atari Sheffield House, but I guess it didn't happen.
Yeah, that's
So I guess, but it's funny you should say something about Atari because that's what we all know. They bought Atari.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they just got rid of it. So it's kind of a weak way to go down, especially after picking up DMA Design because those guys are solid. But that's how 1999 for an Amiga publisher, and among others. But that's a good long run. I thought
absolutely.
And at this point, nothing can surprise you. The game itself was very popular. It got released on a couple systems. There was a version for the Atari ST and the Atari ST/E. I didn't know this one. And this name pops up again. The Acorn Archimedes.
Right. I guess that was the.
We got to look into that.
We already talked about. I think we already found out once, but we've already forgotten.
Well, I mean, no, I remember we talked about it, but I mean, this.
I think it was the 16-bit version of the Acorn.
What a great name! I just love the name, the Archimedes. It sounds very impressive. Also, there was a wacky version that was released for the Mega Drive /Genesis, as we call it in the States. The weird thing is the Genesis version is known as Lotus Turbo Challenge instead of 2, and then Lotus 3 is known as Lotus 2 on the Genesis.
It's like a Final Fantasy situation.
You got that right. So that's pretty much the long and short of the background. The fellows that did it, like I said, the Sean Southern was involved in it, and we should also mention, I guess, did you know about the hidden game in it? Before we'll get into that, just to get it out of the way.
The Crazy Quacks.
Well, actually, in the second one is if you type in ducks. Is that what it was called?
Crazy Quacks.
So it had a name.
Yeah,
I know it basically. I call it low grade carnival. It's what. Did you actually play this game?
I did not actually play it, but I did hear that it was there. We might give it a go on the live stream.
I did play it, and it's low grade carnival. If you've ever played carnival, like I know the version that I played quite a bit was on Coleco. On the ColecoVision, and there was an arcade cabinet. Yeah,
are we talking about like Circus Atari kind of thing?
No, I mean Carnival. There's a gun at the bottom of the screen. You've got X amount of bullets, and you shoot at the targets.
Yeah.
So that's what that was. But what'd you think of the game, Bode?
Well, I've got to say that I loved this game. I'd never played Lotus before, but I had played a game called Top Gear 2, and it was also developed by Gremlin a little bit later on for the Super Nintendo.
Okay.
This game killed Top Gear 2. I think that even though this is an older game, there's a couple things that I really enjoy about this game, and by the same token, probably the whole series. I don't like games that like, say for example, like Pole Position, where if you screw up, you're screwed. You blow up and you have to start from scratch.
Wait a minute, are you saying you don't like Pole Position, Bo?
Oh, I don't like Pole Position.
Oh, good God. All right. I'm going to ignore that. Go ahead.
This game, it slows you down when you hit obstacles, but you never just blow up and have to start from scratch.
Yeah.
To me, it's just more forgiving, and it suits the console nature of the game. It's not trying to suck quarters out of you like Pole Position is. I really liked, when you're driving on the forest level, the first level, and you come to those trees that are down in the road. At first I was like, man, stupid obstacles, I've got to avoid them. Then I accidentally hit one and I realized they're not obstacles at all. They're ramps, and you can jump up. And even though this game very much takes place on a 2D plane, because it's sprites, the sense of going up and down, the altitude of the course they do a really good job. And it's not really, I don't really want to say it's scaling, because I was trying to watch to see if the sprites did a lot of scaling, and I don't know that they really did a lot of it, but it's something with the way that they're drawn, and the sense of speed is very good.
Yeah, the engine they used in this was outstanding. When you get I think it was the most of the way through the first level, when you start cresting those hills and stuff, it's that you get a real interesting sense of speed plus going over the top of something. It reminded me a lot of if you ever played what was it, Turbo? That was the first game that was. I remember doing that in particular, kind of like kick over.
It
like
kind of
that.
Reminded me of Outrun, or not.
It
Outrun.
was a lot like
Hang
Outrun.
On. Actually, yeah.
Or
yeah, they're both kind of the same deal.
But that effect is very interesting. And one thing this game did, and I watched the Genesis version too, just to get a comparison, and which there is no comparison. This crushes the Genesis version. It was embarrassingly, better. They really did a good job of conveying that you're hauling ass.
Yeah,
I'm not as keen on just bouncing off cars and stuff as you are, but if you parlay that into the overall game, it works because you're battling the clock. And those are just slowing you down. It's the same thing, unlike, say, Outrun. And that is a drawback on some of these racing games when you have a big massive crash like Outrun, when you hit one of the billboards. You're down. There's a downtime. And granted, it's affecting your ability to get there before the timer runs out, but also it's just boring. You're just sitting there watching a guy go back to the car, get put back on the street. There's no downtime. And when you've screwed up, but you can kind of ease back in, and you're always playing.
Right.
And so that did make a difference.
Right. I enjoyed the fact that they seem to make the checkpoints, at least on the early levels, pretty. I mean, like they're hard, but they're not. I can't tell you how many times when I first started playing, I got almost to the end of the race.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can see it pulling up, and you're like, boy, I wonder if I can just coast to it. And it really keeps you going. It gives you an incentive when they put the carrot right in front of you versus like Zool or something where the carrot is 400 miles away. It made me want to play more and more and more.
The effect of the placement of the checkpoints was quite brilliant, I thought. Now, I'm not going to lie, I did not get all the way through this on one play. But I mean, all the way through the first level, yes, but not all the way through the whole game.
Oh, yeah.
But the fact that it's almost amazing how close I would come to those checkpoints, and then that timer would run out, and you just glide across. It's so satisfying to glide across that checkpoint. You're like, I'm back in the game. and unlike a lot of games, in Outrun, I'll use that as an example. A lot of times on Outrun, if you're barely making these checkpoints, you're screwed.
Yeah, you're not going to have enough
if you
time.
have a good clean run between checkpoints, even if you glide it across, there's a good chance you can make it.
Yeah. They never make it impossible for you to. You may have to drive a little tighter between the next two checkpoints, but you can still do it.
Yeah. Just for the sake of knowledge, the stages on this is their forest level. It has 5 checkpoints. The next level was the nighttime level. It had 7 checkpoints. I thought the night was a nice level. It was very attractive.
I loved it.
The third level was fog. Fog was tough. It was the fog effect was quite good.
It was.
If you consider what you're playing this on, and keep in mind this was a 1-disc game that ran on the OCS, ECS. So
1985 hardware.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. The fogging effect was quite good, but I mean, it was hard to see.
Yeah,
you got no visibility, and night was like that too. It was hard to see. Anyway, on the fog, there are 8 checkpoints. The snow level, 6 checkpoints. Snow level was pretty fun. Hard.
You can get bogged down if you get off the track.
The worst one for me on that was the desert. Boy, if you get off that, which is the next one, 10 checkpoints, and that's a tough level. I like I also like the little entrance theme to these levels. I thought was funny, but
yeah, it's funny because the music's really quite good. Barry Leitch, I don't know how you say his last name. He did the music, and there's these themes that play on the kind of the loading screen. And they're really good tunes, but again, we run into the same problem that we always do, where you have the sound of the engine, but you don't have the background music. And don't get me wrong, the sound of the engine was great. I love that, but it would have been nice to have both. Would have been nice to have.
It's
both.
weird that on the I believe on the third one you can pick it's a lot like Outrun. You can pick a song. Mm-hmm. You know, I would like to have this music does help. It makes it more interesting to have some good rockin' tune. Mm-hmm. But if it's a choice between music or sound effects, which it may have been at this point, I would probably have chosen sound effects.
In a racing game like this, I think you're right.
Anyway, so the desert, 10 checkpoints. The city, 8 checkpoints, which I thought the city was really cool.
I would love the part on the city where a lot of the track you can just drive in the other lane.
The funny thing about this, and I saw this pointed out on a site I was on. They were right. The city, if it was, you're supposed to be driving across America in this, but in the city you're driving on the wrong side of the road.
Are you really supposed to be driving across America?
That's the plot of this.
Okay.
You're driving across America.
Really?
And I saw that on one of the re-releases they switched it. And so you start on the right side of the road, and the oncoming cars are coming in the left side. You know, so they did it in reverse, but they said on that version, getting under those trucks. Did you actually get to play those levels?
I
played all the levels.
I played all the levels. I loved this game.
Did you ever get under the truck?
I didn't. I read later on that an in-game announcer goes, "Yeehaw!" when you do it. Did you do that?
I know I never got it, but I heard it. I watched the bit. But anyway, the city, a lot of fun. The marsh. 10 checkpoints of pain.
That was another.
That's a brutal level. That was probably, I don't know which is my least favorite level. It was either the marsh or the fog.
The desert was my least favorite because
the desert being that mix too. And then finally, which this was far and away the best level, and I could see why they saved it for last, was the storm.
Yeah.
The storm was awesome. It's a thunderstorm. I mean, it's a literal thunderstorm. There's lightning going off. There's thunder. There's rain driving down. It's got 6 checkpoints. It also had turbos on it, which I thought, why didn't they put those in more of the game? Because those are a lot of fun, you know. But anyway, to go back to the beginning, as it were, the forest is a lot of fun. It's beautiful. It was a good choice for the first level. It's not incredibly hard. Did you have any trouble getting past the first level?
It took me a while.
Yeah.
I mean, at the beginning, I ran out of time several times, but I did beat the forest.
I as well. Now, what did you think about I know in the first and certainly in the third, this was the game was set up in more of a circuit sort of way with named drivers. You're trying to beat guys. What did you think about the sort of the switcheroo on this, where you're literally the other drivers and the traffic is just are just obstacles?
Yeah, to me that's the biggest downfall of this game. Is they should have made the competition part of it, the race part of it. You know, if you're going to have other cars on the track, you want them to be in the race too. And so if I was going to improve on the game at all, I would have kept what they had in Lotus 1 and just named all those guys. And then at the end, you know, you could even still be racing against the clock, but still you could see the rest of the times on there.
And they got rid of the gas gauge. From the first, and the funny thing is that one reappears the third one. The third one, which I know you didn't look at that much, I had a look at it because I'd played it back in the day, and not to go into a review on the third one, but I was very disappointed when that one came out. I remember how much I love this one, and really the third one is kind of ugly. It's not. I mean, it's not even close to being as an attractive a game, and and it's just not as fun to play. But they brought forth a lot of the concepts from the first one to kind of modernize it. It's a shame that they couldn't combine the first two into something, you know.
Right.
But this may be the point where we really hit the wall on the limitations of the hardware, because the third one just didn't have it.
Yeah.
You know, it had a lot of things going for it, but it just couldn't get the job done as well visually. And the thing about this game, if you lose that sense of speed, you're done.
Yeah, that's the game.
Yeah, and they just couldn't quite get it in the third one. And the first one, having to play on a half screen thing, I never liked that. Now, while we're on the subject, let's talk about multiplayer. I didn't know this until I did this review. I knew you could play two people on the machine at the same time. I knew you could play over a link with two people. I didn't realize you could play over a link with four people.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Which is that's incredibly impressive.
Yeah,
for something of that era.
I wonder. Part of me wonders if they put that in knowing that nobody would ever try it. So
from what I read, people tried it and it was a big draw. Because they'd get their.
Oh yeah.
If you think about it, you have to have 2 copies of the game and 2 Amigas, but that's not a huge order.
No.
It's and people. I'm guessing mostly UK people. I couldn't confirm that this was released in the States. Could you confirm or deny that?
No.
I didn't. I knew it was released in the UK and Europe, but I could never see there was an official release for the States. So I don't know. But I'm wagering a lot of people did that because I read a lot of people talking on forums and stuff about how much they enjoyed that.
Right.
So here's another Amiga game that comes down the pike before there's networking or anything, and it's got multiplayer, multi-computer games.
Yeah, I can only imagine how exciting that would have been. You go over, you got 3 other buddies that own Amigas, and actually you only need 2. You only need 1 other person, right?
Right.
Yeah.
2-on-2.
Yeah, 2-on-2.
Or 1-on-1.
Right.
Which is and even the 1-on-1, great because half screen. Especially back in those days, the monitors were a lot smaller.
Yeah.
And so you're losing a lot of screen space. Now, we sort of touched on this, but what were your favorite levels in the game?
I liked the forest a lot. I liked the city, and I liked the storm.
Yeah,
I think those are my top 3.
I think the storm for the obvious reasons. The city was neat. I really liked the tunnels.
Yeah,
I like those. Did a good job with those.
Very realistic. Given the rudimentary way that they did it,
and it works.
Yeah,
it just works. The weather was good. I like the rain aspects. I like the snow. The snow level was interesting looking.
Yeah.
Really, this didn't fail anywhere in the graphics department. I mean, this is amongst the best looking games I think we've seen.
Yeah, absolutely.
What did you think of the sound? I was disappointed with the in-game music. I thought the opening screen theme was outstanding.
Yep.
That's a hallmark of Amiga music.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what I did. I liked the music so much that I pulled it up on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I just played, just the loop of the music while I was playing. The music's great. It would have been great if you could have had both, but I didn't. I never turned down, even when I was playing along with the music, I kept the engine sound on too. And I just had to deal with at the end of every race having 2 different tracks going at once. But yeah, I loved it. Probably the best music of any game that we've done on this show, I think.
I have to ponder that. I really like the Super Fog song. Sorry, it's true. I really like the theme. Again, I wish there was more of it to fill out the game. Something I noticed on some of the levels is that I know in the first game, people I guess complained that all the cars look the same. And on this one, they tried to change the colors up a little bit. But it looks like they were restricted to their palettes on some levels. Because I saw, like, on the example of the desert level, the cars all looked like they were all, like, rusted.
Yeah.
Like rusted-looking hulks.
Yeah.
I like the fact that on the and the swamp level was tough, and some other levels did this too, where you could there'd be water all over the track, and you could hit the tree, like you mentioned, and jump up over the thing. That's always fun.
Yeah, the turbos on the rain level. I just wish there would have been a little bit more. I mean, you don't want to turn it into Mario Kart, but having at least one thing on every level, it's kind of special like that would have been really cool.
Yeah, I would wager with 2 or 4 people, this would be a lot of fun. Though. I mean, this is a game I could definitely see having a good time playing multiplayer on.
Yeah,
which I've played multiplayer on the one monitor, but I think that would add a lot to it. I don't know if there's a way to see your opponent's position. I noticed one thing on the Genesis version was they would actually show a map of the track you were on. Mm-hmm. That would have been nice.
Yeah, and that's something that they did with Top Gear 2, also the game that I played on the Super Nintendo. I just wonder if this was just because I think the Genesis version came out a good. I mean, at least probably a year later, don't you think?
I'm not. I didn't write down the year it came out, but I would say it was later.
Mm-hmm.
I will say something else about the Genesis. First of all, if you've got an Amiga, don't ever go buy the Genesis first. The song that comes up at the beginning is an insult to the actual Amiga song. It's brutal, and the Genesis is capable of a better sound palette than that. And then the actual game, again, it's clunky looking. It's almost like Atari 7800 level.
Wow.
It's just really chunky. You know,
Are you familiar with the subliminal message in the title track?
You know, I read that somewhere, and I listened for it, and I could not hear it. I guess it's subliminal.
Yeah, I guess maybe you've got to go into the mod file and really take out some of the other channels so you could hear it. I could never hear it either.
It's a good idea that did not work.
Yeah.
Maybe I only caught part of the message there. It said, copy this game. Yeah. Okay. I know they released this, like a compilation of this on the CD32. I guess it's pretty much just the 3 games. Mm-hmm. That's from what I could tell. Again, it came on 1 floppy. I just for fun, like I've been doing here recently, I looked on eBay to see what this would set you back. This is not what I would call a cheap game. Again, your mileage may vary on these prices, but I saw people selling just the floppy disk, no box, and even just the floppy disk was going, and of course once you combine shipping in, you're looking at over $20.
Wow.
The box version. The low end, I saw a mushed up box going for somewhere around $27. These are U.S. dollars. Oh, by the way, good luck finding this in the U.S. You're ordering overseas. I'm going to tell you that right now. But in the U.K., you're looking, pretty much $30 at the very, very low end, and then on up the scale. So you're probably, if you find one for under $30 shipped, mm-hmm. You're doing, American, you're doing pretty good. There aren't a ton of them out there either that there were a few. It wasn't something I saw pop up a lot. Right. So if you're interested in picking this one up to play, and I wouldn't blame you, you're going to shell out a few bucks.
Well, it's time. It's time for the score.
Okay, and I'm slightly dreading this because I tried and pretty much got to the same place every time.
I forgot to write it down, but I did write it down on my phone.
Well done.
Let's see.
I'll go ahead and announce mine first, and while you're looking.
Go ahead.
My score was 5,930,945.
All right. Let me make sure I get all my decimal.
It's so many numbers that he has to expand the screen here. Turn it sideways, Bo. That way you can get the whole thing on there.
Okay. My score is 16,006,420.
So you obviously completed at least 2 of the levels.
No, I completed only 2. I almost finished the city.
See, I got to the Twilight level, and that's as far as I could get.
Or no, I almost finished the nighttime level.
Yeah, I did. That's about a third of the way through was that score. So yeah, well, thoroughly crushed.
The first time that I beat the first level, I recorded my score, and I got 7 million something. I'm wondering if you should have more score than that.
Nope. And by the way, for our listeners, I cranked this up on the Amiga 1200 and played it on the native hardware. But that was what I scored.
Huh. All right, well, we're going to go head-to-head here in a few minutes anyway. So
be gentle.
All right, Aaron. Next week, we are going to play Turrican 2. We've had a couple requests for it, and the time has finally come, so look forward to that. Tune in next week for a new edition of the Amigos, and until next time, adios.